Welcome back to the special edition of BBC World News America, coming to you live from Shibuya, the commercial heart of Tokyo. Now, in the last few days, we've been reporting extensively on Japan's economic woes in the global financial crisis, on the collapse in exports, on failing industries, on homelessness. But there is one area in which this country is still very much the envy of the world, and that is on the rails. Almost half a century ago, the bullet train was launched. Since then, billions of people have traveled on it. No wonder President Obama is a fan. In fact, he wants one for the United States. But America has a very long way to go before it can be like Japan when it comes to high-speed rail travel. We took a ride to see what all the fuss is about. Like a snake slithering into Osaka Station, this is the Shinkansen from Tokyo. The rest of the world knows it as the bullet train. It has taken only 2.5 hours to travel the 350 miles from Tokyo and cost about $150. The platform guard is meticulous about checking the exact moment of the arrival. 1 second late. Where else in the world would they do that? No wonder they all take it. Let's face it, no other train in the world is worthy of platform ballet. As I discovered myself, the train is very comfortable. The whisper of the speeding carriages is complemented by the hush of the passengers. No one here would dare to use a mobile phone. It's more like a library at high speed. The whole service was started with billions of dollars of seed money from the government, but now it's privately owned and gloriously profitable. You don't have to be a train buff to admire all the statistics. Average speed of the bullet train, 190 miles per hour. Average delay, 6 seconds. Number of derailments since the service started 45 years ago, a single one, and that was during an earthquake. And the total number of passengers that have travelled on the bullet train system since it began, more than 6 billion. The entire population of the planet has travelled on one of these trains. Outside, Japan flits by. The country's economy may be in trouble, but you really wouldn't know it from taking the bullet train. You can see why this is a source of efficient transport as well as national pride. And it makes money. Lots of it. Train spotting has never been this good for the soul. The glories of the Shinkansen. Well, do stay with us for a final word here from BBC World News America, coming to you live today from Tokyo. Well, we've told you a lot about Japan's economic woes, and they are considerable. The economy here has contracted or will contract by 6%. Exports are down 50%. Companies are going bust. Homelessness is on the rise, etc., etc. But don't forget one thing. This country has proven over and over again that a combination of innovation, credit and resilience can lead to some very pleasant surprises indeed. So, fingers crossed. I'm Matt Fry in Tokyo. You also had Catty Kay in Washington. From all of us here, thanks very much. Have a great weekend. The Obama administration stopped short today of calling for caps on all executives' pay, but they made no secret of their dismay that excessive compensation was a prime factor in the US financial crisis. One former executive who knows how to make $1 or $2 is Pete Peterson, one of the patron saints of the hedge fund industry. The son of a Greek immigrant in Nebraska, he was a co-founder of the Blackstone Group and became an instant billionaire when the company went public in 2007. He's written a memoir called The Education of an American Dreamer. And this afternoon I spoke to him about the current financial climate. Peter Peterson, thanks for coming into the studio. Should the government get involved in any shape or form in trying to regulate the amount of money that executives on Wall Street are being paid?
I think it's very dangerous whenever the government gets involved in compensation. I'd like to give you an example. In 1993, there was a huge populist fervor about millionaires, too many millionaires, and they didn't earn it and so forth. So they put a limit of $1 million on cash compensation. Guess what happened? Compensation shifted from cash to stock options, and stock options doubled as a percent of the available shares. With the rise in the stock market, the CEOs got paid much, much more, and their incomes grew much, much faster after the so-called legislation.
But you can see, can't you, that there's an awful lot of popular anger out there about the amount of money that people like you have been earning and the amount of money that someone in the same company who was a secretary or a minor official has been earning. That gap has widened exponentially.
Yes, and I understand the anger. There isn't any question about it. The percentage of income going to the top brackets, the percent of net worth in the hands of the top brackets is very, very different than it used to be. What I would think would make sense, if I may say so, is to simply tax us fat cats more, which we're in the course of doing.
Talking of enough, one of the things that you've been talking about for a very long time is debt, the national budget deficit. Now, clearly, 10 years ago, we seem to have sorted out this problem. Now we're in a much deeper hole than even you had predicted we might get into. How serious is it? What should be done about it? And what are the risks if we don't?
For one thing, we have become dangerously, dysfunctionally dependent on foreign capital because we don't have savings of our own, as you know. If we don't do anything about these massive deficits, and as we say in America, you ain't seen nothing yet, because when the 78 million baby boomers start retiring, that's when the deficits and debts go literally into totally unsustainable levels. So we've got to get there's so much emphasis now on the short term and the stimulus, and I understand why we need that. But if we don't get our longer term situation under control, I fear that foreign lenders, whom we depend on, could say, I don't have confidence anymore in America. And at that point, we'd have ourselves a real problem.
But how do you get out of that problem? Do you raise taxes, as you suggested earlier? Do you cut any number of government programs? Because you need to do an awful lot in order to close this gap, don't you?
Let me tell you how much we have to cut, because it's a big number. If you take all of the Bush tax cuts, and nobody's proposing getting rid of all of them, it's just on fat cats like me, as you probably know. It's about 1% of the gross domestic product. If you ask what is the increase in entitlement costs as a percent of GDP, it's 9%. Now, you're not going to solve this problem just by tax increases. You're going to have to solve it by reforms that still preserve the safety net for the people that need it and reduce the benefits for everybody else.
Got to leave it there, I'm afraid. Peter Peterson, thank you very much for coming in. The book is called The Education of an American Dreamer.